We are having an experience in the world. But what we need to remember is we've created the world that we're having an experience in. I mean, the way we see it, our perception, that's us. That's us. And also, we're conspiring together at a subconscious level to keep this picture of the world in conflict, the world of disease, the world of war, the world of lack. We are conspiring. We are having a conspiracy of egos, and all that is buried underneath. We don't even realize that we're doing it. But what we do is we realize that what is in us is greater than what is in the world. The light of God that is in us, the light of Spirit, is greater than the world, transcends the world. And once we start establishing that idea in mind and getting quiet and doing whatever lesson that it is that we do, we will set ourselves in a place mentally where these other problems will start to dissipate. Okay, so I'm going to tell the cancer story. We got time. So I was listening to the radio one day, and there's a doctor on the radio, and they were talking. He's a cancer specialist, and they were talking to him about cancer and how it works and what they were doing, what kind of advances that they were making. And he said, well, there are a lot of promising things going on, and he talked about the different medications and treatments and things like that. And he said, but years ago, he said, we discovered that people could visualize themselves getting better, and it seemed to have an effect. He said we could actually track it and see that those people who visualized a different outcome actually had a better chance of going into remission than those who didn't. And he said what we did at first was we would have them visualize the healthy cells in their body marching like off to war and fighting the bad cells, and they would a lot of them would get stronger and they had a better chance. So we still gave them the medical treatment, but this was part of it, and it seemed like it worked pretty good. He said, but now we're doing a different thing. We're having them visualize the good cells coming into harmony with the quote-unquote bad cells and bringing them back into harmony with the body. He says, and that seems to be more effective. And he said, these cells have every cell in your body has a suicide switch. So that when it malfunctions, it's programmed actually to flip the suicide switch and die. But he says these cancer cells, they figure out a way to shut off to deactivate the suicide switch. And so he said some of our research, we're trying to figure out a way that we can just turn the suicide switch back on, and that would get rid of it. He said that there may be some promise there. He said, but we're thinking that meditation and getting quiet and coming to peace with your body, that's very effective. And then he explained how it works. He says what happens with a cancer cell is it starts to think that it's alone and isolated in the body. And it begins to believe that it is lacking, and so it draws more resources from the body, and then its only goal is to reproduce itself. It's unlimited growth is what's going on. So here he is making the cell, he's humanizing it in a way. He's saying that the cell is thinking that it's alone, is thinking that it has lack, and so it draws resources from the body and it reproduces itself, and with more cells that think that they're alone and have lack, and this is how it metastasizes through the body. He says, well, the body has a defense against that. As soon as it sees that one of the cells went crazy, it sets up barriers around that cell to isolate it and keep it from getting the blood supply that it needs. He says, but some of the cancer cells are very clever. And they figure out a way to get around the defense and to trick the body into giving it the blood supply that it needs, and then it sends out copies of itself back the same way over that blood supply. And that's how it spreads. And so I said, wait a minute, this is a familiar story to me. This is a familiar story. That this is really addiction. I mean, it describes what happens with the addictive experience. That a person feels like they're separated from society. They look for ways to escape from it. They look for what they want. Just call it, you could say blood supply for the cancer cell, but whatever that is that you want other than blood supply. And the society sees that as a problem and so isolates the person, but a clever one figures out a way to get around the issue and feeds itself. And it's only concerned with getting more. And, well, I was thinking it's only concerned with eating and reproducing, right? And so, but then I thought, yeah, it's like addiction, but it's really it's really like consumer society. So that on a larger scale, what has happened is we're, through programming, through culture, we've all become a bunch of cancer cells on the world. And I'm also saying that it is by design. That in that conspiracy that I was talking about earlier, this is how we keep ourselves separate. Because we think there's lack. Because we think we don't have enough. And so we got to have more. We got to have more new stuff. We got to have more watches, more shoes, more, we got to have all this stuff because we think that it's somehow going to satisfy this insatiable appetite for more. But the appetite comes from a subconscious feeling that we don't have enough. We feel like we're under threat, that we're not going to get what we need, and that maybe what we have is going to be taken away. So it sets us in conflict with others in the world. It actually sets us in conflict with ourselves. So the healing then, the healing for cancer, the healing for addiction, the healing for rampant consumerism is this meditation of getting quiet and loving all of the disparate parts back together. To sit quietly. If you are ill, to sit quietly and see those parts of your body that are in conflict with other parts coming back together with those other parts. Coming back into union, coming back into wholeness. And this is if you have in the old church, they would call they had members of the church were actually called members of the body of Christ. Members of the body of Christ. And this is the idea that we are all members of the body of Christ. What the Course in Miracles calls the sonship, that we are all members and that we have decided to not be. But the healing, the answer, is to see that we are all members. We're all members of the body of God. We are all parts, and we are all needed. And there is the place in God that we have, no one else can fill. And that means that when we separate ourselves from God, that God is not complete. Well, this actually cannot be. In reality, it cannot be. So just know that, have the faith that really, even though we think we've separated ourselves, we cannot. And so that cannot be, but in our minds it is. So in our minds, God is incomplete, and we are alone. The healing comes from seeing ourselves as one. To heal, so if we're sick in the body, sit quietly, see the love of God emanating, healing what needs to be healed. And understand that there may be some reason, some agenda buried in the subconscious that it may not occur the way you think it should occur. Don't worry about it. Have faith. Be relaxed. Keep working on it. If you feel like you're not fitting in your family, in your community, in society, get quiet. See yourself as part of that family. See yourself extending service and receiving service. See yourself extending love and receiving love from everybody in your family, in your community, in your society. See yourself healed back into the body of Christ. And if you're having problems with your brother or your sister, if you're having problems with anyone in your life, get quiet. Come to peace. See them healed. See them extending love and you extending love back to them. See them healed back into the body of Christ. See yourself and them as one. And that's healing.